1944 was an eventful year, filled with both glory and tragedy for Anton and Rosetha Ettesvold. The Framnes Township couple was well known in the area and active in a variety of organizations. That summer, Anton would be honored as the Minnesota Farmer of the Year and receive accolades, a trip to Washington, D.C., and gifts as this representative. Even as the congratulatory telegraphs were coming in, another arrived telling them of the death of their oldest son serving in World War II. The news shattered their world that was in the midst of a whirlwind of activity. It also brought added concern for their other children still serving in the war. The couple received a 6-star service flag. The 6 blue stars were for each child serving, and a gold star for the one they lost. 4 sons, 1 daughter, and 1 daughter-in-law were represented on the flag. Anton was the second son of Norwegian immigrants who homesteaded in Framnes Township near Cyrus in 1869. Rosetha was also the daughter of Norwegian immigrants who homesteaded in Meeker County near Atwater. Anton grew up on the farm and was the only one choosing to farm. He purchased the farmland that his parents, along with himself, had cultivated from prairie to farmland. His parents retired in 1905, and he became the owner of the land that was now in the family for 36 years. Rosetha's parents were Ole and Rachel Lee. Ole was a construction worker on the Great Northern Railroad when the line from Litchfield to Morris was built. Eventually, he started farming in Meeker County, where Rosetha was born. Rosetha graduated from school and enrolled in the Glenwood Academy for a 3-month teacher training. She taught in Stevens County rural schools where the two met. They were married on December 31, 1905, and Rosetha moved on to the Framnes Township farm with her husband. For the next several years, the couple built their farm and their family. 11 children were welcomed into the family. They included Maynard, Rudolph, Clarence, Mildred, Werdna and Winfred, twins, Earl, Thelma, Nina, Rosemarie, and Kermit. The children grew up on the farm, attended school in Cyrus, and each graduated from Cyrus High School. After graduating, Earl, Rudolph, Winfred, Thelma, and Maynard all served in a division of service during World War II. Maynard's wife, Charlotte, also served, and Kermit later served in the Korean War. Over time, Anton began to get involved in community service organizations. He was elected to the town board of Framnes Township. He spent 36 years on the board. In 1941, he was elected to the first of 3 terms on the Stevens County Board of Commissioners. He was a member of the Stevens County Welfare Board and helped organize the Township Officers Association. During the Depression of the early 30s, he was Director of Relief for Stevens County and later was a member of the State Committee of the Federal Farm Tenant Organization, which helped tenant farmers buy farms with federal loans. Anton also served on the Cyrus School Board when the country and town schools consolidated. He served this role for 20 years. The Cyrus Mutual Telephone Company, Cyrus Farmers Elevator Company, Farmers State Bank, and Cyrus Farmers Shipping Association were all businesses he helped organize or had a financial interest in. Later organizations with which he was connected were the Morris Cooperative Oil Company and the Runestone Electric Company. He was a trustee and sexton of the Scandia Lutheran Free Church and was county chairman for the Lutheran Welfare Association for several years. This involvement did not go unnoticed by his peers. In 1944, radio station WNAX at Yankton, South Dakota, sponsored a competition to select the Midwest's typical farmer. Nominations were made by farm organizations, county agents, and banks, and were supported by records of farming, family, and community and church service. Anton was nominated by the Cyrus State Bank and the Morris State Bank. In late summer of that year, Anton came home from Cyrus and told Rosetha that he had been selected as Minnesota Farmer of the Year, resulting in the nomination of Midwest Farmer of the Year, and they would be attending a Labor Day celebration in Yankton. The celebration would honor the nominees, and each would be interviewed on the radio station. The other candidates came from Nebraska, Iowa, North Dakota, and South Dakota. The committee of judges was made up of the governors of the 5 states. They examined the records and selected Anton as the typical Midwest farmer. The title and honor came with an Allis-Chalmers tractor and an expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. for the inauguration of Franklin Roosevelt into his 4th presidential term in January 1945. Anton and Rosetha returned to Framness Township and continued to receive telegrams congratulating them on the honor. However, one telegraph arrived in late September that changed their lives. They were notified that their oldest son, Maynard, had been killed while fighting in France. He was interred in France at the Epinal American Cemetery. Life went on, and the couple continued to prepare for their trip to Washington, D.C., which would take place in January. Accompanying them were their 2 youngest children, Nina and Kermit. En route to Washington, D.C., they stopped at the Nicollet Hotel in Minneapolis, where they were honored at a dinner. During the dinner, Anton was presented with an Allis-Chalmers tractor, which was driven up to the mezzanine floor of the hotel for presentation. The next 2 weeks were very busy as the family was given the full treatment in the nation's capital. They were guests at numerous banquets, receptions, and teas. They visited Walter Reed Hospital, Lincoln Memorial, Washington Monument, the Pentagon, and many other points of interest. The high point of the trip was attendance at the inauguration and the inaugural luncheon at the White House. Mrs. Roosevelt conducted them about the White House and introduced them to the president. Rosetha attended a luncheon that was served buffet style, and attendees in those days typically stood to eat. Disdaining White House niceties, Rosetha picked up her plate of food, set it down on a marble slab in a corner, and settled herself into a chair. Everyone else in the room remained standing. The following is a portion of the story that appeared in the New York Times the following day. One woman, who looked on with envious surprise, introduced herself to Mrs. Ettesvold. "My father gave $5,000 to this campaign," she said, "and here I am standing up." To that, a little farm woman who is famous for her bread baking replied, "We always sit down to eat in our part of the country." The story appeared in newspapers and news magazines all over the country, and of course followed them back home. At one of the many dinners honoring them, Rosetha stood up to eat her meal. They were featured in several newspaper and magazine articles, including a 3-page picture story in Life magazine. They continued to be honored on their return home to Morris, where they were greeted by a large group of people. The festivities were aired live on WNAX radio for those who could not be in attendance. In 1946, Anton and Rosetha retired from active management of the farm and sold the farm to their son, Earl, who continued to live on the farm homesteaded in 1869. A grandson, Jerry, and his wife, Joyce Ettesvold, bought the farm in 1971 and currently live there, carrying on the family legacy. The couple celebrated their golden wedding anniversary in 1955 with a large open house, and many of their 11 children and 30 grandchildren were in attendance. Both have passed away but have left many stories to be passed on to future generations. Stories of a small Midwest farm family able to experience the many facets of government, the reality of city life, and sharing with many what it is like to be a typical Midwest farmer. Perhaps one of the most important things Anton and Rosetha emphasized was a strong work ethic. They were progressive thinkers and always worked hard at every task they were given. Their faith got them through the difficult times, and hard work through everything else. This has carried on through each of their children and remains through all generations.